Hello and welcome to Spectrum TV News at 2. I am Frank Cizadet, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. We'll take a look at the headlines. Federal government says local content in advertising will save 500,000 jobs. Akwa Ibom State Governor Udomi Manuel receives Governor-elect Pastor Omoina and Deputy Governor-elect Akun Eyanyi. Plus, Lukashenko warns West against consequences of violating hypothetical Ukraine truce. We will bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. Many thanks for joining us. We begin this afternoon with Nigeria's leader, President Muhammadu Buhari, who has thanked his longtime aide, associate, confidant, and senior special assistant on household matters, Saraki Abba. In a congratulatory message, the president said Abba had attained a remarkable milestone, another reason to thank God for his blessings. The Nigerian leader described the celebrant on his 65th birthday as one of his most dedicated, passionate, loyal, and hardworking aides. The president said Abba's patience and humility were endearing virtues, while his integrity is worthy of note, a quality that makes him proud. Away from that, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has said that the country's advertising industry will save around 500,000 jobs by codifying a 70% mandate for local content. Mohammed, who stated this at the 2023 Advertising Industry Colloquium organized by the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria in Lagos, also said the move would save the country hundreds of millions in capital flight. Representing the minister, the Director of Communications at the Ministry of Information and Culture, Sunday Baba, said the colloquium would motivate industry players, especially young people, who would rehearse what they had learned in school, will also learn about industry best practices. He added that advertising had come a long way in advancing the economy, and its role cannot be ignored by any developing country. In another development, the federal government has inaugurated the boards of agencies and institutes under the Federal Ministry of Environment (FME) less than 2 months to the expiration of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. In his address at the inauguration ceremony in Abuja, the Minister of Environment, Mohammed Abdullahi, who inaugurated the board, said they would support in ensuring environmental protection and natural resources conservation for sustainable development in Nigeria. He said it was the mandate of the FME to secure a quality environment conducive for good health and well-being of citizens, promote sustainable use of natural resources, restore and maintain the ecosystem, and preserve biodiversity. And while the agencies and institutes with the new boards includes the Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria, Ibadan, National Oil Spill Detection and Research Agency, National Environment Standards Regulatory Enforcement Agency, among others. A separate development, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has advised Nigeria and other global economies to implement fiscal policies that will reduce poverty and prioritize better living conditions for the poor. The IMF Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, who gave the advice at the 2023 BOAQ Forum for Asia held at the Molantu Lighthouse China, said over the past 3 years, low-income and vulnerable countries and people have been hit hard by the poverty level. She predicted 2023 to be another difficult year, with global growth falling under 3% as the effect of the war in Ukraine and monetary tightening continue to take hold. Georgieva said rescuing the vulnerable people starts at home, with governments protecting them in their own countries. Away from that, the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, Dichotomy, in Abuja, commended the Policy Innovation Center of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG, for launching a digital economy community of practice to drive inclusive growth and sustainable development for stakeholders in the Nigerian digital ecosystem. The project is a culmination of NESG's partnership with the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office to identify and boost the capacity of key digital players and engender inclusive public-private sector collaboration to enable digital growth and capabilities in Nigeria. He noted that the challenge of building the nation's economy cannot be left with one institution or sector, adding that stakeholders must come together in order to support each other to ensure that the economy is developed. In another development, the Debt Management Office (DMO) has revealed that Nigeria's total public debt stock increased to 46.25 trillion naira in the fourth quarter of 2022. The latest figure has made members of the organized private sector and economists to predict that tougher days are ahead for Nigerians and firms. Meanwhile, the national debt as of September 2022 was put at 44.06 trillion naira, according to the office. The new figure consists of the domestic and external total debt stocks of the federal government and the sub-national governments, 36 state governments, and the Federal Capital Territory. Citing reasons for the increase, the DMO said new borrowings by the federal government of Nigeria and sub-national governments, primarily to fund budget deficits and execute projects, and the issuance of promissory notes to settle some liabilities, also contributed to the growth in the debt stock. Move to education, where former students of polytechnics across Nigeria have called on President Buhari to sign the Higher National Diploma (HND) and Bachelor of Science (BSc) Dichotomy Act to ensure the sustainability and growth of technological education. The former students, under the urges of the Forum of Nigeria Polytechnics Alumni Association, FONPA, which lamented that the HND BSc dichotomy was doing great harm, said giving accent to the act by the president will calm free nerves and renew hopes for millions of polytechnic graduates in the country. The FONPA chairman Obiola Ibebuke and Secretary Goge Shola also called on the federal government to, as a matter of urgency and necessity, upgrade Nigerian polytechnics to degree-awarding institutions for increased academic prowess, as in the norm in advanced climes, as well as to advance the frontiers of technological education. Back here, Akwa State Governor Udom Emmanuel yesterday received the Governor-elect Pastor Minor and the Deputy Governor-designate Dr. Akone Yanyi, who went to present to him the certificates of return (COR) they received from the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) following their victory in the gubernatorial elections. Speaking shortly after receiving, and Pastor Umoina, who described his victory at the polls as God's grace upon his life, assured the Akwa people of creating jobs for the youths and supporting entrepreneurs to further grow a robust economy in the state.
It's only God that could have made it happen. And so we return all glory to Him. The one that was, the one that is, the one that is to come. Let all glory be to Him in Jesus' name. Let me thank most Lastly, the Resident Electoral Commissioner at Akwa State, Dr. Cyril Omorogu, and his great team for their kind invitation for us to receive this certificate of return, which symbolizes the last of the levels of recognition of our overwhelming victory at the polls on March 18th, 2023. Let me again thank most profusely my political father, His Excellency Governor Dom Emmanuel, his dear wife, and First Lady, Her Excellency Dr. Mrs. Martha Dom Emmanuel, our dear campaigner-in-chief.
The governor-elect pointed out that having been given the mandate to lead Akwa Ibom people in the next political dispensation, his vision for the state, as encapsulated in the RISE agenda, will drive development in the rural areas by giving preference to agricultural development, infrastructural development, security, and education. Recall that INEC had yesterday commenced the presentation of the certificates to the governor-elect and other members-elect at the State House of Assembly around noon at the Commission's headquarters in the state at Udodoma Avenue, following the conclusion of the March 18 elections. A move to Africa, where U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has lauded Tanzania's reforms aimed at strengthening the East African nation's democracy. Her host, President Samia Hassan, described the visit as a milestone for her country. Reports say Harris is in the second leg of her African tour, which began in Ghana and will conclude in Zambia over the weekend. The Vice President described the decisions as important and meaningful steps that have helped expand the two countries' partnership. Meanwhile, she announced $560 million in support to boost trade with Tanzania and strengthen democracy. In Africa, the M23 rebels in Democratic Republic of Congo, spokesman Willy Ngoma says the group is withdrawing from the eastern border town of Bunagana and are expected to hand over the town to Ugandan peacekeeping troops today. Ngoma said the withdrawal is part of a deal brokered by regional heads of state and armed chiefs following meetings held in Angola, Burundi, and Kenya. In a statement, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has said the country's troops were going in Bunagana to act as a neutral force as the Congolese use time to sort out their political problems. Meanwhile, Burundi and Kenya have already deployed troops in territories where the rebels have left, and South Sudan is also expected to send in troops. On the foreign scene, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has called for a freezing of hostilities in Ukraine and warned that Russia would have to use the full force of its military if the West attempts to use a hypothetical pause in the war to encroach on its territory. Lukashenko said in an address today that it is necessary to stop hostilities and declare a truce that prohibits both sides from moving groups of troops and from transferring weapons, ammunition, manpower, and equipment. He warned that Moscow would be obliged to use the full power of its military-industrial complex and the army to prevent the escalation of the conflict, as well as phosphorus ammunition, non-depleted uranium, and enriched uranium will be put into action if there are any notice of deception and suspicious movement across the border of Ukraine. And elsewhere, Finland will become the 31st member of NATO after Turkey's parliament voted to approve its application. Turkey had delayed Finland's bid to join the West Defensive Alliance for months, complaining the Nordic nation was supporting terrorists. Reports say Sweden, which applied to join NATO at the same time last May, is still being blocked by Ankara over similar complaints. Meanwhile, Finland will now be formally admitted into NATO at its next summit, taking place in July in Lithuania. Still to come in the news, Russian and Belarusian players to compete this year in Wimbledon 2023 games. To stay with us.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Many thanks for staying with us, and now to the rest of the news stories. On a business news, the federal government has declared that Nigeria must not be a dumping ground for air conditioners and refrigerators with energy efficiency ratio that are below internationally acceptable minimum energy performance standard. This came as the United Nations said Nigerians purchase about 1 million air conditioners every year. Meanwhile, the federal government told the Nigeria Customs Service, Standard Organization of Nigeria, and other relevant agencies to be alive to their responsibilities, stressing that the influx of substandard cooling appliances pose danger to the climatic conditions across the country. Still in business, the Standards Organization of Nigeria, SON, has submitted that the lack of regulation of conformity assessment activities over the years has adversely affected industries in the country. This was stated by SON's Director General Farouk Salim at the National Register for Conformity Assessment Practitioners Stakeholders Engagement in Lagos. He said weak regulations were largely caused by poor protection of genuine practitioners from the negative impact of unhealthy competition from quacks, poor visibility and recognition of genuine and competent practitioners capable of attracting patronage and partnerships for enhanced trade relationships, and poor value for money by unsuspecting customers who patronize quacks against others. Salim noted that the engagement was guided by the strategic collaboration that SON shared with their various organizations over time, especially with the SON Management Systems Certification and Training Services Department, with the organization's interface through their customers.
We expect them to have an agreement on common ways of behaving and common ways of practicing. So the public will be better for it, the nation will be better for it. Right now, anybody can come into the market without documentation, and some of our customers, the public, have been duped by companies that are not authentic. So this process will make sure that only individuals that are qualified and authentic are participating in the system.
We move to elsewhere. Bauchi State Primary Healthcare Development Agency has reportedly recorded 22 deaths from Lassa fever cases across the state in 2023. The chairman of the agency, Rilwanu Muhammad, made this known at a one-day advocacy engagement meeting with traditional and religious leaders on prevention of infectious diseases in Bauchi State. Mohammed, who was represented by the Deputy Director, Disease Control and Immunization of the agency, Haruna Wakil, said Bauchi State also recorded 678 suspected Lassa fever cases, 95 confirmed cases, and 22 deaths. The agency stressed the need for proactive measures in the fight against infectious diseases, adding that traditional rulers and community leaders have significant roles to play in achieving the set objectives. Still in hell, the Governor of Osun State, Ademola Adeleke, and Consul General of the United States Consulate in Lagos, Will Stevens, has called for the collaboration of all stakeholders to enable more people in the state know their human immunodeficiency virus status. Reports say they both spoke in Osogbo at the launching of the Osun Art Search Project, an initiative of excellence community education and welfare scheme aimed at delivering comprehensive and sustainable HIV/AIDS clinical and community services to achieve HIV epidemic control in sub-national units of Delta, Ekiti, and Osun states. The initiative is funded by the United States President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief through the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Adeleke, who was represented at the event by his deputy, Kola Adewusi, disclosed that in the first 5 months of active surge implementation, Osun had seen a leap in treatment coverage of 12%. From the exciting world of sports, Russian and Belarusian players will be able to compete at Wimbledon this summer after the All England club AELTC lifted the ban it imposed last year. Recall that the players were banned in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the support provided by Belarus. Speaking with newsman, AELTC chairman Ian Hewitt said the club will continue to condemn Russia's illegal invasion and their wholehearted support remains with the people of Ukraine. According to the All England club, the players will be able to feature this year subject to competing as neutral athletes and complying with certain conditions, which includes agreeing not to support the Russian and Belarusian states or their government and leaders, now receiving funding from the two states, including sponsorship from companies operated or controlled by them, among others. Meanwhile, punishments for breaking the declarations are also said to range from fines to expulsion from the tournament. Wimbledon starts this year on 3rd July at the All England club AELTC. In sports, Nigeria's Super Eagles is reportedly ranked 15th most expensive team in the world. The latest financial rankings of national teams released by Transfer Market witnessed a massive rise in the squad market value. Reports say the rise in the squad market value saw the three-time African champions move up 2 steps and now ranked the 13th most valuable international team globally, while also cementing its position in Africa as the most valuable team on the continent. The Eagles boast players who ply their trade in Europe's lucrative leagues, making them one of the world's most valuable teams with a total value of 338.50 million euros, said the Nigerian's value squad witnessed an increase of 37.5 million euro compared to the squad's previous value. On our entertainment news, Nigerian megastar Davido has released his much-anticipated 4th album, Timeless. The album features Asake, Dexter Raps, Skepta, Kevman, Angelina Kidjo, Musa Keys, Logos Olori, Faith, Maraviv, and Focalistic. In entertainment, American Rich the Kid has released a new single titled Yeah Yeah, featuring Rema, Ayra Starr, and Kiddo. As Nigerian music continues to attract new listeners around the world, more international artists featuring Afrobeat stars as a way to connect with the audience. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You've been watching Spectrum TV News at 2. I am Francis Edit. Many thanks for being there and to enjoy the rest of your day.